What if I told you the loudest power you'll ever possess is found in silence, and the moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop proving, everything you've been fighting for begins to chase you? That's not a fantasy. It's not wishful thinking. It's a reality. But only if you have the guts to shift your focus inward. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly focused on you without distractions, without noise, without seeking approval? Most people will spend their entire lives broadcasting their pain, their progress, their plans, thinking that volume equals value. But here's the truth no one tells you. When you go quiet, when you turn all that attention inward and pour it into yourself, your growth, your peace, your vision, you become undeniable. The world starts to feel it before they even see it. You don't have to announce your every move. Silence is not weakness, it's mastery. Because those who are truly focused don't talk about it, they live it. And in that silence, you're doing the most dangerous thing of all, you're evolving. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, validated, liked. But while they're distracted by the applause, you're building in the shadows. While they're arguing for their limitations, you're cutting yours loose. This isn't about hiding. It's about not wasting your energy proving what time will prove better than your words ever could. Stay quiet while you heal. Stay quiet while you level up. Let your results introduce you. Let your silence scream transformation. You don't need to explain your vision to people who can't see it. You don't need permission to become the version of yourself no one's met yet. And the moment you stop needing to be understood, you become unshakable. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It's power in its most undiluted form. Think about it, the strongest people you've ever met aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who walk into a room and don't need to say a word. There's something about their presence. You feel it before they open their mouth. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. That's the energy of someone who's done the inner work and doesn't need to advertise it. Because once you truly know yourself, you stop needing the world to confirm it. Most people misunderstand silence. They think being quiet means being passive. That if you're not responding, not posting, not explaining yourself, you're being weak or irrelevant. That's not true. Silence is what happens when you shift your focus from performance to progress. It's what happens when your energy is so valuable you stop wasting it on proving points and start investing it into building your future. There's a reason people fear the silent ones. They're unpredictable, unreadable, and often the most dangerous in the room. Because while everyone else is reacting, they're calculating. While others are emotionally bleeding for attention, they're healing in private. Psychologically, silence creates space. It gives your mind clarity. It forces you to confront what's real, no distractions, no applause, just you and your truth. That kind of solitude is terrifying for some because it reveals who they really are. But if you can sit in that space and use it, you begin to access parts of yourself the noise kept buried. You become intentional. You start choosing your thoughts, your actions, your circle. And from that silence, a new identity starts to emerge, stronger, calmer, more precise. The world is loud, but silence is rare. And anything rare holds value. So when you go quiet, when you pull back from the noise and redirect that energy into yourself, you become rare. And people will notice, not because you shouted, but because your presence shifted. That's the kind of power no one can imitate, no one can fake. It's internal, it's real. And once you tap into it, you stop chasing attention because you realize attention isn't power. Focus is, stillness is, silence is. You don't have to announce your progress to prove it's real. The truth is, the more deeply you're growing, the less you feel the need to talk about it. Think about the most significant changes in your life. Did they happen with a microphone in your hand or in the quiet corners of your own mind? Real growth is invisible at first. It's internal, subtle, uncomfortable. It's not something you post about, it's something you live through. And while the world watches for surface level results, you're developing a kind of power that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in self-trust. People will always look for evidence of your transformation before it's ready to be seen. They want updates, proof, a story to follow. But when you're locked in, when you're doing the actual work, you don't have time to narrate it. You're not worried about the optics, you're focused on the outcome. That's what separates those who evolve from those who just perform. And here's what's wild. When you finally arrive, when the results of your discipline, your focus, your silence begin to speak, they hit harder because no one saw it coming. Psychologically, humans are wired to seek recognition. It's how we're built. But when your self-worth becomes dependent on external applause, you're giving away your power. You're letting the noise dictate your direction. That's why staying quiet is such a radical act. It interrupts the loop. It forces you to validate yourself through action, not approval. And the minute you stop needing people to see your progress, you unlock the freedom to accelerate it. So while they're watching, waiting, doubting, you're moving quietly, relentlessly, and one day they'll ask, where did this come from? And the answer will be, it was always coming, you just weren't paying attention. Results don't need a spokesperson. Progress doesn't need a press release. You just show up again and again, and when it's time, your life becomes the evidence. That's the kind of transformation no one can question because it didn't come from noise. It came from silence, focus, and the decision to outgrow the need to prove anything at all. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you start owning your life. I think about how much of your time, your energy, your peace has been traded for someone else's approval, likes, compliments, attention, acceptance. It's a quiet addiction, one that looks harmless on the surface, but underneath, it's exhausting. When you're constantly asking the world, am I enough yet? You're handing them the remote to your self-worth. And they'll flip through your identity like it's a channel until you finally decide to take the control back. Real transformation begins when you stop performing for the crowd and start showing up for you. Not in a selfish way, but in a self-respecting one. When you start making decisions based on what aligns with your future, not your fears, not your past, not other people's opinions, you begin to shift. Internally first. You start reclaiming your focus, and something amazing happens when you do that. Your peace increases, your anxiety drops, and you begin to build a life that actually feels like yours. Psychologically, we are social beings. We're wired to belong, but when that wiring becomes twisted into a need to constantly be seen, heard, approved of, we lose ourselves. That's when burnout sets in. That's when confidence becomes fragile. Because you're not building from within, you're building from reaction. But growth, real, lasting, unshakable growth requires solitude. It requires silence. You cannot become who you're meant to be while trying to keep everyone else comfortable. And here's the truth that stings. Most people won't understand your growth while it's happening. They won't cheer for your boundaries. They won't applaud your discipline. And that's okay. They're not supposed to. You're not say, your evolution is not a group project. You're not here to be understood. You're here to become. So stop explaining yourself. Stop needing everyone to get it. Let them misread you while you rewrite yourself. That's power. That's liberation. That's when everything starts to fall into place, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped fighting for attention and started becoming someone who doesn't need it. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. That truth right there will either liberate you or hit you like a brick. Because most people walk around wondering why they're not getting the life they dream of, yet they never stop to ask if they're becoming the kind of person that life would naturally gravitate toward. You want peace, become calm. You want loyalty, start being loyal to yourself. You want success, build discipline. The universe doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to alignment. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They think if they want something bad enough, they'll eventually get it. But desire without transformation is just frustration. Wishing doesn't make it happen, becoming does. And becoming requires you to get brutally honest with yourself. What habits are you holding on to that contradict the future you say you want? What environments are you in that shrink your potential? You can't fake energy. You can't mask inconsistency. The world may not always hear your words, but it always feels your frequency. That's what you attract, not your goals, but your state. Psychologically, we mirror what we value. If you value growth, you'll start seeking it even when it's uncomfortable. If you value validation, you'll chase people who withhold it. Every part of your life is a reflection of your internal settings. That's not an insult, it's an opportunity. Because once you realize that, you also realize you have the power to change those settings, to stop operating from the wounded version of yourself and start upgrading your mindset, your routines, your identity. When you start shifting your energy, your environment starts shifting with you. You don't have to beg for the right people, the right opportunities, the right timing. You become a match for them. And suddenly what once felt out of reach starts showing up naturally. Not because you forced it, but because you grew into it. That's the secret most people miss. Attraction isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. So if you want a new life, stop chasing and start aligning. That's when everything you've been running after starts running toward you. The most powerful version of you will never be the one that tries to convince people you've changed. It will be the one that no longer cares if they notice. Because real growth doesn't demand recognition, it demands discipline. When you finally stop explaining your evolution and simply live it, that's when it becomes undeniable. Your energy shifts. Your standards rise. And the world responds not because you told them to, but because the evidence becomes too obvious to ignore. Every time you choose not to react, not to defend, not to broadcast what you're building, you're choosing power. Silence in those moments isn't weakness, it's maturity. It's self-trust. You're no longer fighting to be understood because you understand yourself. And that kind of confidence, the kind built in solitude, can't be shaken by outside noise. Psychologically, we're wired to seek feedback, but when you master the art of internal feedback, of self-validation, of quiet consistency, you stop needing the crowd to clap for you. People often ask, how do I know I'm growing? The answer isn't in your followers, your income, or your achievements. It's in how little you feel the urge to prove anything. It's in how peaceful you feel without recognition. That's the invisible evidence of transformation. And ironically, it's when you stop chasing visibility that your progress becomes most visible. Not in words, but in the way you carry yourself, the way you respond, the way you don't react. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to defend your healing. You don't owe anyone a tour of your transformation. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let your actions create a silence so loud it speaks for you, because when everything starts falling into place, when the results, the clarity, the momentum finally show up, they'll know. And by then, you won't need the recognition. You'll already be too focused on the next level. That's the quiet magic of real growth. It doesn't just change how the world sees you, it changes what you need from it. And most of the time, you'll find it's a lot less than you thought.